Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I am Jess, and today we are going to take on a task. We are going to try to propagate every single plant that I own, and I own over 200 plants. So I don't even know if we're gonna be able to finish this today. This might have to be a today and tomorrow project, but we will see. Propagating is one of the most easiest and successful ways to grow your garden extremely fast and cheaply. One thing for you guys to keep in mind is that there are some legal rights to propagation that some companies have been able to place on their plants and their specific species, or variation, I guess you can call it. So with a lot of succulents, there are very specific propagation guidelines, especially if you're going to be selling them. I would not recommend selling any sort of plant that you do not know if there's a propagation copyright, I think is what they're called, on the plant. Now for me, I personally do not sell any plants, and so me propagating my plants is really just to keep the plant healthy and to kind of expand my collection in my own house. But I wouldn't ever sell the plants that I propagate just because of the legal implications of it. So anything that you see today is not going to be sold. It's just going to be for my personal collection. But I wanted to show you guys how you can expand on your collection as well, because you are the plant owner and you want to make sure that your plants stay healthy. And this will also give you a nice full planter if you're trying to fill it in. So we're going to try several different propagation methods today. I'm going to use what I know to work best for a lot of them. And a lot of them I haven't ever propagated before, so I've been doing my own research, and this is going to be the first time I propagate those. So if you haven't already, you are going to want to go click that subscribe button down below so that you do not miss the update for this video, because I'm going to try to section them off and keep them in a certain spot to show you guys all of the progress that all of these propagations are making. So let's just get into it, because this is going to be a long video otherwise. All right, so this is my succulent collection. They are all under grow lights. I'm going to be taking cuttings mainly from these plants, if not leaves, or offsets. It'll be a combination of different propagation methods, but we will try to get the most out of this garden. Alrighty, so just a few tools that I'm going to be using today. These are some sewing scissors. I like them because they're so pointed and small, and it makes it really easy to cut the plants. One of the things that I haven't been using but I know would work really well is dental floss. I don't have the actual string kind, I just have like the picks. But dental floss would also work really well for cutting succulents. Otherwise, I have this small little paring knife and I have a larger one. So, you know, just kind of depending on the plant, we'll see which one I need. But these are the three tools that I'm going to use. You know, I recommend that they're clean before you cut your plants with them. But I don't personally sterilize them. I know that's a big red flag for a lot of people, but I've been doing this for years and I've never had an issue. So maybe one day I'll have an issue and I'll change my mind, but you know, as clean as you can get them is probably preferred. These knives are very clean. These sewing scissors, probably not. But I personally like the sewing scissors just because of how small they are. The only other thing that I have is a little basket that I'm going to be using to be putting all of my cuttings in, and that's all. So let's get going. So like this one is a little bit etiolated and stretched. I'm not going to take it out of its pot because it's pretty stuck in there and it would take a lot of effort for me to get it out. But one thing I am going to just do is I'm just going to take this and snip at a cross section. So for this one, that's where that one was, and I just snipped there. You want to leave the two leaves below it, and there you have your first cutting. Now that one was a fairly generous cutting. You don't need to make it that large. You can take just a small cutting as well. But I find that sometimes it's better. And then I think we're gonna just leave that other one on there. I haven't made it super far. This is the next day because I got tired and went to bed. But I wanted to touch on a few things from where I've gotten so far. So this succulent is beautiful. I love it so much. It's gorgeous. But normally when I cut them off as cuttings, I like to leave a few leaves on there so that it has kind of a chance to grow some more babies. I have had babies grow from stems that do not have any leaves, but it's just not as likely. So we're just going to leave this. It didn't go as planned. I was hoping I would leave a few leaves on there, but it is what it is. I am not going to be propagating my succulent seedlings. They're just not big enough, and they're kind of propagations themselves. But I am 2/3 of the way done through the succulents, and this is our fun little basket we have so far. So I'm excited to get to the actual house plants, like the greenery ones. Some of the propagation methods I've used are cuttings and leaves, and ripping off offsets for these succulents. And so I've done all three here. I'm trying to see. So this one didn't get any roots, but I have a little, oh, here it is. I have a little Haworthia that does have some roots. This was a baby offset that I got. When you cut off the stem like this, that's a cutting. And then we have a bunch of leaves as well that I've kind of taken off. I have learned over the years that if you can take a cutting of a succulent, that is going to give you so much better results than succulent leaves. It's very possible to propagate from a leaf, but you're going to get much more satisfying results if you just do cuttings. A lot of these Lolas that I cut off, such as this little guy here, they were all from cuttings. All of their stems were cuttings. So this little guy here, he will grow another little baby, hopefully, off the side, and then you can cut that off. And it just has an already established root system in the stem, so it's a lot easier for it to grow a baby, whereas with this is all the nutrients that it has and all it has access to until it grows a whole new root system. So it's just so much easier to take cuttings. And so I almost never propagate by leaf anymore, but I have so many leaves that I was taking off so I could make an actual cutting. And so here we are. But let's finish the last little bit of succulent. Okay, so here's the aloe that I actually propagated maybe a few months ago. Look at all of the little babies that are forming. What I'm gonna do here is just take this, cut, and then we have a new cutting. And then I'm just gonna plant it down there. Succulent is an absolute wreck of a succulent. So let's clean this up a little bit. All of these are Ariel roots. These are a few cuttings that I took recently. We're just going to trim this guy down. So we're just gonna take this and give him about an inch, rip off the Ariel roots, and we're gonna put them in the basket. So here are all of my succulents propagated and done, and I'm actually quite impressed at the number of succulents that I actually have. I know that I have a lot of succulents, but I don't realize I have this many until I have to actually go through all of them. This also gave me a great chance to go through and check for any like mealybugs or issues that my succulents might be having, and kind of treat as I go. So here we are, so many succulents. I'm going to be putting these kind of in like a propagation area. We will see how far I get tonight, but one thing I'll just say for anybody who's new to succulent propagation, and for that point, a lot of other types of propagation, you want to let these all sit for 2 to 3 days, probably even a week, to let them callus over. A lot of times I don't even plant them up or water them until they have roots, and then I plant them up. But you know, a lot of the times the roots will grow out of this bottom. You want to rip off a few of the leaves and get those nodes where the leaf is attached to the stem, because that's where new roots are going to grow out. And same with the stem that you left behind. You want a few nodes there so that the succulents can grow out. There are a lot here. These Haworthias, you can, or gastraloes or whatever, it works for gasterias, aloes, Haworthias, all those different types of varieties. You can cut out the center and replant that. A lot of times they'll make little offsets, and then with the leaves we'll also just leave them in a indirect light area and let them grow roots. So let's move on to houseplants, shall we? Okay, so this here is a snake plant. It was a propagation that I had, and this is a new leaf here, and then it shot up this random one over in this direction. I saw with snake plants you can propagate them in water, so I'm going to be doing that because I find that the easiest way to propagate houseplants. I don't find water propagation to be the easiest for succulents. However, I've had much better success just letting them be in dry areas and not having to transition them from water to soil. However, with majority of houseplants, I've found that water propagation works great. You can use literally any jar that you have in your house. Here's an old mason jar. This is a Tostitos queso jar that we have saved. Just any sort of glass, plastic, little jar. You just need to be able to change the water out frequently. So we're gonna try this. I've never propagated this guy this way before. I'm going to take my scissors. They're clean-ish. We're going to cut down here. Oh, I don't know if that'll work. It's not a super clean cut. Then I guess you just take this cutting and cut it into sections. I'm going to go with 1/3. And then you just put the bottom end in some water. I have another large snake plant that we're gonna grab a few more cuttings from. Okay. So here's my massive snake plant. We're going to take a few more cuttings. We already got our 3 little ones in this jar. Let's see here. I'm gonna try to take a cutting out from more towards the middle of the plant, just so you can't see it. But let's go with this leaf here. It looks like a nice, good leaf. Oh, yikes. I don't know if my scissors are big enough for this. Okay. There we go. Perfect. Cheers. Next up is this bird nest. We are going, or Sansevieria trifasciata, something. This one I am just going to be taking an offset from. Mine is making babies like crazy. I'm sure another method is maybe you can cut out the center and reroot that, kind of like what we did for the Haworthias and different succulents. However, that sounds like a lot of effort today, so we're not gonna do that. We have a bunch of little babies, and then I think there's one over here, and just all over the place. So we're going to be taking some of those out. So I'm gonna take a knife and just kind of try to pull it away from the plant. And this is perfect because I got a little bit of root with it. So he will be great. Okay, so for this one, I lost my scissors. You want to take a node. I've had great success propagating my Monstera deliciosa in the past. The only key is that you have to find a node to propagate off of. So let me search for that real quick. Okay, I think I found one. So let me see if I can get you closer, but I have a node right here. But what I'm going to do is cut right above that node. Perfect. Okay, and then I'll show you what I'm talking about here. So this is a node, this little brown dot right there. That is where your roots are going to come out of, so you need that. And then you really just need at least one leaf. This one has two, which is great, and this one is just unraveling, which is super cute. And we'll probably propagate more from him later, but I'll probably try to do a video on that. And then for him, I'm seriously just going to throw him in some water and we're good to go. The only thing I will mention is that you want to make sure your node is in the water, and you want to make sure that your leaves are not in the water. So the great thing about propagating plants is once you know a few of the basics, you can propagate a lot of plants, because a lot of plants act and propagate the same way. So just like the Monstera, we are going to look for nodes on this pothos. This is a neon pothos, and so I'm going to start looking for some nodes in this plant. So you can see right here there is a node, and under here there is a node. So I'm going to make maybe 2 cuttings, and same thing with pothos. You want to make sure that you get at least 1 node per cutting and at least 1 leaf. And you really don't need to go much further than the node, because there's no use, and that part's just going to rot. So the closer you can actually get to the node is probably better. And same thing here, we're just going to put him in some water. We're gonna just throw him in the same cup of water as our Monstera is right now. Maybe we'll just do a few more of these because they're fun. So same thing here. Here's a cutting, and I have a node right there, that little black dot. Okay, so this is a great example, and maybe this will be my last cutting from this plant. But let's see if I can get a good close-up for you guys. There are actually 3 nodes that I see on this plant here. Here's the first one, here's the second one, and then here's the third one. So what I'm going to be doing here is right underneath this second node, I'm going to be making a cut. Well, if I was actually skilled enough to make a cut. There. So we have our first cutting. And then underneath this second node, I'm going to make a cut. So then I was able to make 3 cuttings from the same 1 cutting. Now for this plant, this is a peperomia, or Chinese money plant, I think is what it's called sometimes. There are plenty of small little babies that I'm just going to be pulling off. So you can see here's the little guy. I'm just going to kind of be pulling him out of the dirt. He's got a little bit of roots on him, and we're going to just replant him. This plant is in desperate need of some water. But here's another little guy. So we're just going to use those 2. I'm pretty sure these send off shoots and make the other ones, because this thing is loaded with babies, but we're just going to leave it now. I kind of like the look of how this plant is currently. This is seriously my favorite plant. This is my Monstera adansonii. I love this plant. Exact same thing, exact same process. Let's go find some nodes to start cutting. Boom. first node has actually quite a few leaves on it. What I can do is cut at this other node, and you know what? This one is forming another leaf right here. So I'm just going to leave this one be. The node is right here. The leaf is forming right here. We're going to leave that one be because I don't want to do anything to disrupt that new leaf. I probably shouldn't have cut it anyhow, but whatever, it'll probably grow. All right, so I've actually propagated this one fairly heavily recently, and a lot of new leaves are just forming, so I'm just going to kind of let this one sit. We're just going to take that one cutting and leave it. You guys probably know this plant. This is a spider plant. This one is variegated, and it has tons of babies on it. This one was a gift that I got, but look at this monster of a baby maker. So one little tip with spider plants that I was told by the person who gave it to me is that spider plants like to be root bound, and when they're root bound, that's when they make babies. So if you're struggling to get your spider plant to make some babies, maybe try moving it to a smaller pot so it can get root bound quicker. We are going to try to figure out how to disconnect one of these little babies. Should not be hard. There we go. Okay, so they're just on this little shoot, and they seriously are just kind of wrapped around it. Just kind of peel it off, and there you have it. Here's kind of the little root system structure. That's what we'll put in the soil, and then all of this can be stuck in some dirt. We actually might be able to just set this in a cup of water and let it propagate that way. Next we have some English ivy. I'm just going to be making a small cutting here of this. You guys, seriously, all of these are the same thing. You just want to make sure you get a node. The nodes on the English ivy are a little bit smaller, and I'm seriously just going to kind of put this back in this pot because I want this pot to fill in more. If you can kind of see, I only have 3 or 4 cuttings from it. So we're going to make a few more cuttings here of this one. And then just kind of keep sticking them in this pot. And then on this end, you can see I have kind of this little tail. I'm just going to kind of clean it up and bring it back so that this leaf is at the end instead of a long piece of stem. And I think I'm going to make just a few more cuttings. There's one. You can see the small little node. It's usually where a leaf is growing. There, and look at how much fuller this plant already looks. He's a little bit shorter. We just kind of gave him a haircut. This is an aluminum plant. This plant has been a workhorse for me. I have propagated this thing so much and have trimmed it up almost monthly, and it is massive and it's beautiful. And I had to move it because it was just getting huge and way too big for the spot that I had it. So with this one, literally all I'm going to be doing is trimming it up and making some cuttings. Now, preferably, I would like to make it so that there are other leaves on the stem that I leave, so that that will also make some babies, but it's not necessary. So we're just gonna kind of trim this guy up. If anybody's getting kind of straggly, so like this guy here, he's getting a little straggly, we're gonna just come in and cut him at his parent base, and then I'm just gonna stick him back in the soil like such. Perfect. This guy's getting a little unruly, but he's adding a lot of height for the plant, so we're just gonna kind of leave him. I think I'm just gonna take that one cutting for today, but there's technically, I think, little nodes on this, but they're kind of in segments, so you can just kind of cut wherever and just stick it back. This one I found is a really easy plant to take care of, so if you're looking for something easy to put in your apartment or house that can tolerate some low light, this is that plant. So I have a few plants that I'm not going to be propagating today, and I'll tell you why. So this one here is a Majesty Palm, and the only reason I'm not going to be propagating it is because you need to separate from the base of the new babies, and it doesn't have any right now. But so these are two in here, and this is technically a baby, but I like these being in the same pot. It makes it look full, so I'm just going to be leaving it in here. It's very dry. It actually needs to be watered today, but I want to keep this look, and so I'm going to actually be leaving these two in here just because I like how large and full it is. This African mask or Alocasia poly plant, I cannot get it to grow to save my life. I'm going to be doing much more research on its roots, but same thing with this one. You're supposed to separate off the babies, and I've already done that here with these two. They're now two separate plants, but I did this a while ago, and there's no new growth coming up from the bottom yet. And I need to kind of figure out how to keep it alive first. This fern here, from what I've read in my research, and you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'd love to be corrected and actually know how to do this, but I've read that it's not possible to really propagate this type of plant. It doesn't really make babies, and I guess you're supposed to grow it from seed, and it doesn't do leaf propagation or anything like that, so I won't be able to propagate this, and from what I've read, it just said you're better off just to buy a new plant, so we'll be leaving that one, I guess. Then over here we have a Calathea, and this one is so gorgeous. I love it. There are plenty of babies, and I could propagate this one, but I want this one to fill in this pot and become very full, and so we're actually just going to leave this one too. I know that's kind of cheating for this video, but I have a very certain look that I'm going for with this plant here. And the reason I'm not propagating it is because it's quite not big enough, and this is a brand new plant for me, so I'm still trying to learn how to keep it alive. So there's, you're supposed to be able to cut these down, and I would be able to. There are a few stems, but I would prefer for this to get a little bit bigger. It's also putting on a brand new leaf, and it's in that process, so I don't want to disrupt it while it's doing this, especially because I just got this plant and want to make sure that I keep it alive and healthy. I do have 3 bird of paradise plants, but I won't also be propagating those because from my understanding you need to propagate them by cutting off little babies and like offsets that they shoot up, and none of them have any. The reason I have 3 is because they came as one and did make the babies and the offsets, and I've split them in the past, but they don't currently have any. And I could try to cut this here, but again, I'm trying to just keep my birds of paradise alive, and so I don't really want to mess up this, especially with a new leaf coming in here. Now I have a few other plants that I'll show you. So this blue starred fern, which I'm pretty sure it's what it's called, barely alive, so won't be propagating that one. I have another one up here that I also won't be propagating. I'm just trying to keep those alive as it is. And then I killed my stromanth, so I put it on a shelf and then I forgot about it. So unfortunately, he does not look so good. I'm trying to bring it back, but it's a little hopeless right now. Oh, and then my carnivorous plants that are in here, and I have one other, what is this one called? Drosera, but from my understanding, I can't propagate these this way. I might be able to cut the Drosera, but he's not doing super great, and I think he's transitioning and is going into a growing season, but isn't there yet. So I'm just going to be leaving these ones as well. Alrighty, so that is all I have for you guys today. I know that I lied and didn't actually propagate every single plant, but every single plant that I have that is currently propagatable, I propagated. So other than that one Calathea and my plumosa fern, which is technically not a fern. Apparently it's part of the asparagus family or something like that is what I read, I think. But anyhow, I won't be propagating those two just because I want one to actually live and the other to fill in. So that is all I have for you guys today. If you have any questions, please leave them down below in the comment section. I hope that you can tell me tips for propagating other plants and maybe things that will have worked for you. Leave them down below. Otherwise, I hope I taught you something and maybe you guys can use these tips to propagate your own plants at home. You know, a lot of plants will either be propagated by a leaf or a cutting or division or something like that, or separating offsets. And unfortunately, the offsets are the ones that I struggle with the most because I can't just make them happen. You have to wait for the offsets to form. So anyhow, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. You don't want to miss any of these updates on all of these new babies that we just propagated. And please go ahead and click that like button if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more videos about propagation. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.